Hello everybody and welcome to the MerwinMusic YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to show you how I go about making brushed aluminum control panels for my DIY projects. So if you like to build various electronic projects, an easy way to get a great looking panel for holding knobs and switches is to use a piece of brushed aluminum. The first thing that you want to do is pick up an 1/8 inch thick piece of aluminum. There are common sizes of flat bar that you can pick up at most home improvement stores, or you can order exactly what you need online. Next, you can mark and drill the holes that you need for your specific project, but once you are all done with that, the panel looks pretty rough. To get that brushed aluminum look, all you need to do is sand the aluminum in a straight line. Now, depending on how your panel attaches to the final project, you will need to sand first before installing it, which is the case with this amplifier, or with this switch box that I made. Since the entire front face is the panel, I glued it down first and sanded afterwards. Either way, we want to set up a fence to guide our sanding block to help us keep straight lines. For one panel, I clamped 2 boards in my vise, one flat and the other upright, to act as a guide while sanding. And I used some loops of blue painter's tape to stick the panel down to the flat piece of scrap wood. Double-sided tape would work better for this, but I had the blue tape on hand. The process is mostly the same for the box. However, I clamped the box and the fence boards in my vise, and I used a third board to space the fence board away from the box. That way I can sand all the way to the edge of the panel. Next, we want to sand with 220 grit sandpaper in a sanding block, and since this panel was bigger than my sanding block, I used a scrap of wood and some old cardboard for padding to make a bigger sanding block. In order to get a nice brushed aluminum look, we want to follow the fence and sand in perfectly straight lines. Since I had some deep scratches from drilling this hole and punching in letters, I sanded quickly back and forth to cut down on the amount of time that it would take to get those out. And then once the panel started to look pretty good, I switched to only sanding in one direction all the way through the entire panel. I had some problems with my homemade sanding block getting stuck on the fence, so I used this extra piece of wood to slide against the fence, and that worked out pretty well. Now that all the scratches and paint were removed from the panel, I switched to 320 grit sandpaper and continued the same process. You really can use whatever grit you want, and it will give you either a finer or more pronounced brush look. I wanted the look to be a little bit finer on this panel, so instead of just using the 220 grit paper, I went up to 320. Once I had nice straight lines with the 320 grit sandpaper, I used a green scouring pad to further clean up the front panel and even out the finish. You can see at this point the panel is looking really good, and lastly all I did was clean off the sanding dust with a shop towel and some mineral spirits. Since the panel won't see a ton of use, I'm not too worried about protecting it, but I did apply paste wax over the panel at the same time that I was finishing the wood box. If you were looking to add an extra layer of protection to your panel, then I would recommend using a clear coat paint that is made for aluminum wheels, and that should give you more protection than you would ever need. And that is really all there is to it. All you need is some sandpaper and patience, and you can get some really nice professional looking panels for your DIY projects. For more tips on DIY projects, make sure to check out my other videos. But as always, make sure to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And most of all, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.